I want to talk about errors and their value in motor learning. So errors are the gate to plasticity, and plasticity is how the brain changes and helps us learn, right? So errors are what's really helping us learn. And that'll be a big basis in the For the Kids long-term athletic development model when it comes out as well. But I want to talk about the basis of errors in motor learning. So I've mentioned that the cerebellum is constantly taking in sensory input. And I mentioned yesterday how, like for an example, when we're doing that smooth pursuit to track the ball, it knows when there's an error made from eyes tracking that ball, and it can take in that input and it learns from that, right? So that's the basis of how this works. So the cerebellum has this sensory input, and then it'll send out a motor plan based on the sensory input, and it knows what the sensory input should be after a new movement is initiated. All right, so it knows the initial what the sensory input should be, and then when that actual motor plan is initiated and movement takes place, it knows the sensory input that's actually taking place after the fact. So it has this initial sensory input about what should happen, and then it has the sensory input about what actually happens. All right, so if there's an error in the movement, it takes in that sensory input, and it knows the error, and then it learns from that error. So the next time you make that movement or how you're moving through that environment, it learns from that, and it sends out a new motor plan based on that new sensory input. So it's constantly taking in that sensory input, constantly taking in those errors and modifying your output based on that error. So that's why the errors are so important in motor learning.